Good afternoon. Would like to call the January 9th zoning hearing board meeting to order. If you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amy, if you could call the roll, please.
Sure. Mr. Siebold is absent today. Ms. King?
Present.
Mr. Dawson?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Ms. Gungeon?
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the election of the 2024 officers. I understand there is a motion for president.
I'd like to nominate Jeffrey Johnson.
Okay. Do we need a second on that, Art?
You do. I second. You can't second yourself.
Selena, I'll second it.
You do for nominations.
All right. Do we then call the roll for that, or is it a voice?
Somebody should make a motion to close the nominations.
Okay. I can make a motion to close the nominations.
A second on that? Second. Vote? It doesn't need to be a roll call, just voice vote.
All right. All in favor of Mr. Johnson as our incoming president, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. No opposition. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, we do also need to have a motion for vice chair. Is
Nominate Ed Dawson.
okay. Is there a second? I can make that second.
I'll second Selena.
Okay.
Either way. All right. Hearing no other nominations, I'll motion to close the nominations. All in favor of Mr. Dawson as our incoming vice chair, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing
Aye.
none, congratulations, sir. All right, well, we're going to do the ceremonial seat swap, Mr. Johnson. Okay. Well, I will turn the floor over to you then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Do we need to do a nomination for secretary, or is that just by default?
That's by default.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I question that procedure a second, maybe just a clarification purpose. I've never known we needed a second when we're doing elections.
It's standard parliamentary procedure.
Instead of parliamentary procedure, that would go through three organizations, it's not a second. One person. You split vote. That's second.
Okay. I would disagree with that, but that's okay. Since it's not an issue, we can, I'm more than happy to provide you with the basis for that, but having just gone through the reorganization meetings for several municipalities and school districts, and all of them having people nominated and seconded, before the nominations were closed and then the vote was held, I tell you that in 30-some years, that's been my practice, is to have a motion to nominate somebody, a second on the nomination, and then the vote.
I 50 years, sorry, in all organizations and other.
Okay, moving right along.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Approval of the December 12th minutes.
So moved.
Second?
You need a
Can we
roll
call the
call, or
vote?
can we just voice vote?
Whichever you prefer, sir.
Let's just do a voice vote.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion has passed to approve the December 12th, 2023 meeting minutes. No.
Next day.
Meeting minutes, I apologize.
Yeah, we did those, correct?
Mr. Chairman, this is Selena. Sorry to interrupt. Should there be an abstention from me since I was not present for the last meeting?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. King.
Okay, thank you, Art. Welcome.
Next on the agenda is appeals. From what I understand, there's none to be heard today, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And the next is adjournment, but did you want to talk about the planning commission and any recommendations or what they went over?
So, I mean, I guess Laura and I had discussed this before the meeting today, just briefly, to make sure that everybody had seen the recommendations that the planning commission was submitting for a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance, which again seems to address most of the issues that we had with regard to the language in the short-term rental portion of the zoning ordinance, specifically with regard to screen planting strip. A lot of that has been addressed. The other thing is what we had discussed previously, and it's really not talked about, and that is the parking issue that Mr. Dawson had raised. So, I mean, we have time, again, we have time for discussion of this as a group, and I think we've got about 15 minutes before the next group is slated to come in and take over the room. So if people wanted to discuss it, now would be an opportune time.
You have anything, Ed or Laura, that you want to discuss?
Yeah, I just think I have a difference of opinion, I guess, of what you're saying there, which is, if I got a 100-yard yard and I have one driveway, you can't move another car without another car moving. But it's clearly enough room for cars to park off the street, to provide off-street parking. And I don't believe in Erie that you have very many two-lane wide driveways that would accommodate that. I think it's meant for a regular driveway. I think it's meant for cars to be off the street, away from the curb. I further believe that it is the responsibility of the zoning board, the zoning office, to go by and to enforce those things. So things like how many square foot in a room to make a bedroom. Well, that's up to, they can submit to us, but we don't measure square foot. We don't go in anybody's house. So we have to take their word for it, and we have to take the word that the office will go and enforce it. And if they don't have the proper square footage, they'll turn it down. If they don't have the proper driveway, I think the office should turn it down when they go out. I don't think we're in the enforcement business, and I believe that's where we're headed, and I would like not to go there.
I would like some further understanding, whether it be from council or the planning commission, relative to the original intent of off-street parking. My understanding it was that we didn't, through the short-term rental, want to be dumping a bunch of cars onto on-street parking, so that there was adequate off-street parking, therefore it wasn't a burden to city roadways. I think that if off-street parking stays the way that it is, that's one unit, or the way that it's proposed, it's one unit, one rentable unit and one space off-street. What we're essentially doing then is dumping a bunch of cars onto the city parking system on street. And I have some concerns with that. I would ask if it's possible that we could have a conversation with the planning commission. I understand that the zoning hearing board doesn't necessarily have a role in approving this language. I'm frustrated by the fact that we are the ones that generated the issues, and we were not consulted relative to the fixes to those issues. So if it were to be possible to have a conversation with the planning commission, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page prior to this language being submitted to council for approval, I think that that would be a benefit across the board, to have that opportunity.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Well said.
Okay, very good. Well, then we'll leave it up to you guys to see what you can plan for us. Okay?
Yes, so just so I'm clear on my task, you would like us to reach out to the planning commission and try to get together to discuss this publicly as like a forum in a study session we would do normally? something specially scheduled, not outside, not inside the planning commission or zoning hearing board time, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I
Yourselves
can
available.
discuss that further with Jake and work with the planning commission.
Yeah, we'll consult with the solicitor's office on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Sure.
And Jake, just so I'm, and Amy, just get used to having you back, Amy.
Thank you very much.
Just so we're clear on all of this here with regard to the proposed language. You know, the parking is one of the unresolved ones that we need clarification on. I think one of the other ones, Jake, is what I think is an assumption that when we approve somebody for a short-term rental, that they're only going to be renting to one family. And, you know, I don't know, I mean, is that set forth in the short-term rental ordinance?
It is.
Where?
Yeah, it's explicitly defined in the ordinance. That would be. Section 30557. Essentially, what it says is, under 30557A3, says that STR accommodations shall not exceed the number of occupants allowed within the applicable zoning district.
Okay,
So being that the home is, and granted, it's looked at as a use, but it is still classified as a single-family dwelling by the assessment office. As far as the nature of the structure, it's a single-family dwelling, even though we're saying it could be used for this commercial purpose.
even though we're specifically saying in these amendments that it's not a dwelling.
Right, and I think that may have been why that definition of dwelling may have wanted to include the term short-term rental at some point. That might have been what the solicitor was thinking when it was originally drafted,
Right?
because that's where we would lean on that, the number of occupants allowed within the applicable zoning district. Because as a single-family dwelling, it's restricted to one family.
No, it's not.
And if it were defined as a single-family dwelling.
But I mean, even as a single-family dwelling, it's not defined by one family. You can still have up to 3 unrelated individuals.
Well, true, and that fits under the definition of family. It's one of the sub-definitions of under family. Is up to
But now you've
3
got
unrelated
3
individuals.
unrelated individuals who can rent a room in a place and each have a vehicle.
But we only have one parking spot.
I mean, I understand the potential, and if they are renting, if they have 3 separate leases, they're renting to, at the same night to 3 different people under 3 unrelated people,
Yeah.
then I would consider that separate rentable units, and they should have a parking space for each one.
Okay.
That's how I would relate that to the off-street parking requirement, as far as enforcement is concerned.
And again, like Mr. Dawson said, we don't want to get into the business of enforcement. We're here to hear appeals. But when people end up in front of us because you've got a neighbor that doesn't like the fact that there are multiple cars and people are parking on the street, so they come in and now there is some type of an appeal that ends up in front of us, we want to be able to look at the ordinance and have it clearly defined, so that people can rely on that, right? And we don't have to be making it up as we go.
Right, and
I
that's
think
the intent of the language is to cover those situations from an enforcement standpoint. I mean, if somebody does have a complaint that somebody's constantly has multiple vehicles all over the place, then we're certainly going to question the occupancy and the number of occupancy or occupants and the relationship of those occupants. And if it becomes an enforcement issue, then we revoke the license and they will no longer be able to rent legally. And then, we will have to go through enforcement proceedings if they choose to remain non-compliant.
But again, there's nothing in the ordinance per se that specifically limits the rental to a single-family unit.
Well, we'll bring that up with the solicitor's office to see what comments they have on how they're interpreting the legality of the language. That's the best thing we can do.
Okay. And, in the long run, we're looking at this, we're trying to save this board hassle, okay? We're trying to save the city money, because if there's an appeal, then you're gonna have the city solicitors down here arguing about it, you're gonna have me up here, we might end up over in court. We're just trying to avoid reasonably foreseeable situations.
Understood.
Right? This is one of those things, I split things into two categories, those things that are within the realm of possibility and those things that are within the realm of probability. This issue is within the realm of probability, and if it can be addressed, it should be addressed.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Thank you.